Quote, "For the simplicity that lies this side of complexity, I would not give a fig, but for the simplicity that lies on the other side of complexity, I would give my life." Oliver Wendell Holmes. I find it quite fascinating that Bitcoin is this technological wonder that has bridged our world, the material world, to the transcendental by allowing us to monetize the idea of absolute scarcity. And on a technical level, as well as a philosophical one, that is uh, truly magnificent. And it's a rabbit hole that you can go down endlessly. Yet, on the other side of that complexity, there is rapidly emerging within the Bitcoin culture a return to very traditional principles and one might even say ancient wisdom regarding uh, the management of money and wealth. So, despite us taking uh, this leap forward in the technology of money, a leap forward that is so giant that it is almost Kubrickian. You can picture 2001: A Space Odyssey, that cut from the monkeys first learning how to use tools and weapons, and then there's that cut to a space station. Well, in a lot of ways, that is the transition that Bitcoin has uh, facilitated in terms of money as a technology. It is such a monumental leap forward that it is difficult to even quantify it. It is a leap forward measured in orders of magnitude. And like I said, despite all of that, despite that complexity, what we see in Bitcoin is people talking about saving, hard work, stacking sats, maintaining a balanced budget, living within your means. These are fundamental values that we have lost since the world has become engulfed in fiat and debt. We no longer think in terms of saving, in terms of the act of ensuring that in our life, energy inputs always at least match and ideally exceed energy outputs. And when you put it that way, I mean, this isn't even about principles or values. This is about thermodynamics. This is about us recognizing that we do not live in a world where you can get something for nothing. There are no limits. There is no scarcity. Debt equals prosperity. These are all mentalities of the fiat paradigm. Now, this phenomenon that I personally have noticed within the Bitcoin space of returning to these traditional approaches to personal finance, returning to the ancient wisdom regarding the management of money and wealth. This is kind of a relatively recent phenomenon. It wasn't long ago that the Bitcoin memes and the mentality was all about moons and Lambos. In the first couple run-ups, first 2 or 3 price run-ups of Bitcoin, how many of those OGs went out and bought Lambos? Literally, that's where the meme comes from. You don't see that anymore. What you see in the Bitcoin community now is an emphasis on never selling, not as a meme, but literally never selling, using your Bitcoin as collateral at some point in the future, but never selling, accumulating, constantly increasing your sat stack, constantly increasing your percentage ownership of absolute scarcity. You see in the Bitcoin community a emphasis on increasing income, decreasing expenditure, reducing consumption, avoiding speculation and gambling, particularly in reference to altcoins and shitcoins. This is a relatively new phenomenon, but it is a very powerful one. I sense that the culture and the narrative of Bitcoin as the supreme savings vehicle, I see that cementing and ossifying. And I think there's a reason for that. I think people who are in Bitcoin get it. This is the real deal now. This is not the time to be cashing in your Bitcoin to buy stupid consumer shit. This is not the time to be buying sports cars with your mad gains. This window of opportunity that we have been blessed with will only come once in the history of humanity, perhaps. It may well be the case that there was gold for 5,000 years and then there was Bitcoin, period. That kind of opportunity does not present itself very often, folks. And I think in the Bitcoin culture, this realization is absolutely beginning to manifest itself in this emphasis on old-fashioned traditional approaches to the accumulation of wealth. And that's hard work, saving, having a budget. These things almost sound like cliches, perhaps, to some people. Some people may roll their eyes, but they don't get it. They don't get that this is what having a personal Bitcoin standard introduces to the psychology of a person. All of a sudden, there's no shortcuts. There's no easy way of just sitting back and getting rich. There's no one that is going to give you a single sat without you having earned it in some way. I think that the fact that this type of culture that is building around the Bitcoin community, and only the Bitcoin community, by the way, is evidence, proof positive that yes, indeed, Bitcoin is money. It is not venture capital equity. It is not a moonshot speculative gamble. It is money. It is digital gold. In fact, it would seem to be the case that gold is in the process of being demonetized by Bitcoin, and I believe we're witnessing it in real time. And just the fact that so many in the Bitcoin community are not, it's not that they're pushing the narrative of returning to traditional financial. People appear to be independently arriving at these mentalities. You know, there's those "this is your brain on drugs" memes, and it's like the scrambled eggs or whatever. Well, this is your brain on Bitcoin. And to the extent that Bitcoin goes mainstream, and as nation states continue to begin to adopt it, as people begin to consciously reject the fiat paradigm, fiat mindset, I think that we will see naturally emerge a return to the ancient wisdom of living within your means, having a budget, saving, trading value for value. This is just a natural outcome of what happens when you have sound money, when you have real money. For generations now, we've had no idea what it's like to have sound money. We've had no idea what it's like to be able to punch in at work, put in a hard day's work. Any money that remains from your pay after all your bills and expenditure has been taken care of, that money can just sit there. It can just be your savings, and it will continue to at least maintain its purchasing power, or ideally, if it's hard money, it will increase in purchasing power. You don't have to buy stocks. You don't have to have mutual funds. You don't have to put it in bonds. You can just save it in money. That's the whole point of money. We've forgotten this. As humanity, has totally forgotten that that's what money's supposed to do, and that's how simple it should be. I think that as we return to hard money, and I think that is happening with Bitcoin, we are going to see a renaissance in the way that the common man, the hard worker, the blue collar worker, the middle class, we're going to see this transformation of priorities. We're going to see in the years to come people rejecting consumerism, people rejecting debt, people deciding to live within their means. This is profoundly beneficial for humanity, for civilization. I think this is what Bitcoin, its true innovation is the way it transforms psychology, and I think the way it turns people into savers rather than consumers, the way it stops people from gambling and speculating and trying to get something for nothing. This is all derivative of Bitcoin's effect, its ability to modify behavior through incentives. That is the true genius of Bitcoin, and I'm not the first person to mention that, or I'm not the first person to make that observation, but it's absolutely true. The true genius of Satoshi Nakamoto was in his ability to create a digital form of hard money, digital scarcity, in such a way that it not only aligned with human psychology, but it improved it, that it transforms it. So, in conclusion, I just want to emphasize again that if you're just getting into Bitcoin, or if you've been in the Bitcoin space for a long time, perhaps years, it's the same for everyone. The same principles apply to everyone. You need to save. That means you need to reduce consumption and, if possible, increase income. You need to produce value. You need to work. You need to work hard. You need to avoid speculating. You need to avoid gambling. There's only one path to the accumulation of Bitcoin. There's only one path to increasing your relative percentage ownership of this transcendent object known as Bitcoin.